Si ni miaka mitano? Si nitaenda nyumbani? Si mimi nimesema nitaunga mkono ndugu yangu Mheshimiwa Ruto? Kwani ni Mkikuyu, lazima awe ni Mkikuyu? Si yeye atakuja na timu yake ile atakuja naye? Si mimi nitawaunga mkono? Na tuendelee namna hiyo.
But what happened? In what seems as an escalation of the rift between President Kenyatta and his deputy William Ruto, days after he asked him to resign, the General Service Unit Guard GSU protecting the DP's official residence in Karen, Nairobi, and in his Sugoi home was withdrawn in unclear circumstances and replaced by the administration police. However, is this move yet again an unlawful act? And what does it mean? The Police Service Standing Orders Chapter 8, Section 5E states that the GSU commandant shall be responsible for security of the President, the Deputy President, State Houses and lodges. And of course, from this discussion, we ask you our question of the day. Do you think Deputy President William Ruto is being unfairly treated and targeted by the very government he deputizes? Share your views through our SMS line 111 or at Switch TV Kenya and at Lincoln Ombogo no social media handles. All these happening a day after the BBI Secretariat announced they will be challenging the Court of Appeal's verdict at the Supreme Court. You're watching Tipping Point. My name is Lincoln Ombogo. Our sign language interpreters tonight are Michael Mathieu and Tracy Dorcas. And in studio, of course, we have Nordin Kagai and Sylvia. But let's take a look at this.
I have an agenda that I was elected on, and that work must continue. And it would be really the honorable thing that if you are not happy with it, right, that you would actually, step aside and allow those who want to move on, and then take your agenda to the people, which is what happens in any normal, democracy.
And I want to tell them, I am a man on a mission. I have no space to retreat, and I don't have the luxury to surrender. If there was a much more dangerous constitutional change, it is the BBI.
Can't on the one hand say I'm not going, and because at the same time I don't agree. You've got to decide, because you must be principled in that endeavor.
Again in studio, we have Nordin Kagai, a lawyer who will help us understand the law, especially when it comes to a presidential security detail in the Constitution. We also have Sylvia Mulame, a political analyst, camp politician. Shall we? Now the president says resign. His deputy says, I'm not going to surrender. I'm a man on a mission. Today, the deputy president's security detail is replaced from GSU to AP. Nordin, is this even legal?
You see, there is something, if you're a good history student, they say history repeats itself. You see, he finds himself where Jaramogi was back then with Kenyatta Senior or Kenyatta 1. This is Kenyatta 2. So he's in a tight spot. But lucky for him, the framers of the 2020 Constitution envisioned a scenario where vice presidents back then were for hire and fire at will. But now, if you want to remove your deputy president, Article 150 clearly states how. You realize there is the incapacitation if he doesn't have the capabilities, or if he's not in his lucid moments to be deputy president, or the other option is impeachment. Now that needs numbers. You ask yourself, do we have the numbers? Do we have the time for that? You realize. So telling him to resign is really neither here nor there. And I believe he sees what happens, or what happened to Jaramogi when he resigned. You see, they keep saying that he should resign. But he's smart enough to know that if whatever is going through right now as a deputy president, what will happen to you if you're not a deputy president? Well, if you look at today, the sad reality is that whether they're together or not, you see, this goes back to how we form alliances or coalitions in Kenya. What was the sole reason as to why they formed the alliance? Clearly, they had different missions or agendas. And that is why you see there's a disconnect somewhere. You see, if you form an alliance to capture power, so once you have the power, then what do you do with the alliance? You realize. So that brings the issue of these formations that we usually have. So looking at what happened today, it is sad, because at the end of the day, whether they're in good terms or not, he's a deputy president. His security is important. You realize, because he's the principal assistant. And then the second thing you have to realize is that he has supporters. You realize. And what they have done today is sad, because even though they don't like him, if that is true, because it might be a game as well, the sad reality is that,
What game, Newton?
you know, politics is funny. Because at the end of the day, what you see at times is not what is there. You realize this, because at the end of the day, these people talk. You see, the citizens are usually pawns. You fight for them, and they meet at night. There's a common saying ya Kiswahili inasema siasa ni usiku, si mchana unaona picha. Hii usiku hii ambayo kafi imewekwa ndio siasa inapigwa. You realize? So the sad reality is that as a deputy president, he needs his security. All right? So what they've done today, if there were some votes that were not in his basket, he's added some few votes, courtesy of sympathy. Because now people will say, hey, by the way, this guy is being targeted. And you know, a human being out, it's natural. I'll give you an example. Joho won his second term, not because he had worked in the first term. Mm-hmm. He had actually performed poorly. But because it was seen that he's fighting for the people of the coast, he's fighting the president and also the coastal economy, and that there's a witch hunt against him. He won. And so sympathy actually pays off in politics, a sad reality. So what they've done today, they've actually elevated him. That's a sad reality. So? Yes. In a way, they've elevated him. Because at the end of the day, now it depends on what he, and with him, he's smart enough to run with something. It depends on what he does from tomorrow, because his people are going to expect, the same way they expected a response after Uhuru spoke, they're going to expect a response tomorrow. You realize? Because when people like Itumbi tweet, that means, they speak for him, right? So they are going to wait and see what he says post tomorrow. And remember, Joe used to say, sitaki security, chukua security, wananchi wangu watanilinda. So that is plain to the gallery at the end of the day. And you see, the voter finds themselves subscribing to that as sympathy, sadly enough.
Now, back to a question of the day. Do you think Deputy President William Ruto is being unfairly treated and targeted by the very government that he deputizes? Send in your feedback through our SMS line 111 Switch TV Kenya, and a link on all social media handles. Sylvia, what do you read from all this? I mean, the president telling his deputy, resign if you feel so disgruntled by this government. Do you think now do you think that was a threat, and now they're making those threats come to play now?
First of all, I have to say that as a country, we've come of age where on the international scene, we are seen as an emerging market, which means that we are developing very fast economically. And this far that we have come is because of the milestones in development that has taken place in this country. And when you have a situation like this, in my opinion, I would say that the wrangles have been going on for quite a long time, and it's in-house wrangles. So far, the in-house wrangles have gone out to the public, which is the rest of the public now we are witnessing and being, kind of coerced into watching this show unfold. It's like a movie that we're waiting to see the end of it. However, I think that the president has his rightful way because he's the leader of the country, he's the head of the nation, and we all owe allegiance to him, and he has his deputy. So what should have happened as a mature state? The president should actually sit down with the deputy president, and they should literally iron this out.
Do you see that happening, though?
Well, it doesn't seem like it's possible to happen, but this fiasco going on in the media and in the public arena, it's causing a lot of unrest for the rest of the Kenyans. We are undergoing such an unprecedented time right now because of COVID. There are so many people out there without work. They don't even have time to be watching and seeing who has been chased and who's not, So it's almost like a fist fight for the rich, while the poor man is busy dying down there, trying to find out how is the price of unga and ugali going to go down? How is the price of vegetables going to go down? How am I going to afford my next child's school fees? So it's a state that is really sad for a country and for the image of the country. And as for the deputy president, he has the opportunity to sit back and listen and say, hey, you know, we started this way. Where did we go wrong? Can we get to an understanding? By the time all this security is coming out, so many things have happened behind the scenes of which we will never know as the public. And, you know, we can only judge from what we see. So in my opinion is that the deputy president also needs to take his place as the deputy. Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you, Sylvia. Nurdin,
Yeah.
we read an article from the Constitution and replacing the deputy president's security detail, the GSU officers with AP officers is a breach of the Constitution. Then who is supposed now to watch over us?
Let me ask you a question.
Please.
Are you surprised with the breach or violation of the Constitution in Kenya, courtesy of Jubilee government? I wouldn't be surprised. It's nothing new. You realize they don't observe court orders. You see, the sad reality is that there's a saying in law, we say the law is clear, but it depends on the reader. You see, like the text, it's like a text. A text can be written, but how you decipher the text depends on different readers. So at the end of the day, when the law says that his protection is courtesy of the GSU, why would you go behind that? At the end of the day, that clearly shows a violation of the law.
The viewers don't even know about it. Maybe we can read it for them.
Yeah.
Police Service Standing Orders, Chapter 8, 5E. The commandant of the General Service Unit shall be responsible for the security to the President, the Deputy President, State House, and lodges. Nurdin.
You see, it's clear. But like I said,
It's not a surprise.
clarity in different angles is weird. But for some who read that and they still see that is not how things are supposed to be, it is sad. You see, when you play politics into security matters, that is not good. Because at the end of the day, God forbid, what if something happens to him? Then what will you say? This is why I keep saying this. Like we started and I said, the sad reality is that we form alliances with different agendas, with no common agenda. It's to capture power. Then you capture power. What happens when you capture the power? And then you feel like, it's like the deputy governors. The moment a governor gets into office, they see the deputy as redundant, as like, there's nothing you can tell me. That's a sad reality. So at the end of the day, you see the citizens, that's the ones who are suffering. The economy is ailing, and then we wake up to sideshows every other day. We need to be talking about vaccinations. We need to be talking about how to get the vaccinations levels high so we can open the economy. But every day you wake up, it's a show of the might. You realize? It's more or less like the saying that says, when you're in power, crush your enemy. Make sure you crush your enemy without any remorse. That is sad, because at the end of the day, the country is bleeding. We need to get to a point where, if you've seen, we have an issue with the CBC, nobody's addressing that. Parents are suffering. They can't take the children to school. There are so many important issues other than 2022, because we are still in 2021. And if someone wants to vie for president in 2022, why do you feel the urge to stop him? You realize? Because at the end of the day, if we are not wrong, the executive order that took most of his functions and placed them under Matiang'i, which means he's more or less like a flower girl, to be honest, but he's deputy president. So if he has no functions, let him do whatever he's doing. Because at the end of the day, like I told you, you can't wish him away. The framers of the Constitution knew this. You see, it's more or less a frustration tactic, like what happened to Jaramogi. But you see, he's smart enough to see, if I go that route, what happens to me? If this is happening as a deputy, what happens if you're just any other person? You realize, some people are born to take the to take the harsh things that will come their way, like Raila Odinga. He wouldn't care. He would go for it. You realize, but some are calculative in their mission, and so he said, when the time comes to leave government, he will leave without being told to leave. So until then, they have Article 150 to look at, stare at it and say, do we impeach him? Then you ask yourself, why should we impeach him? Is it the time to impeach him? Then when you impeach him, sympathy votes come again. You realize? So they're actually between a rock and a hard place. I believe what they need to do, because you asked a question, whether they can talk. If the president and former prime minister had a handshake, there's no one in Kenya who can talk.
Exactly.
Because things were bad back then. When Baba came back, when we were being told, Baba, while you were away, if you saw what happened as he came back, we had issues of his escort being fired at. If that was solved and they shook hands, there's nothing bigger that can stop Uhuru Kenyatta and William Ruto from shaking hands. And if it gets to a point where they shake hands and say, boss, I am going my own way, go your own way, that is better. Because at the end of the day, We need politicians need to realize that there has to be a country post-2022. The citizens need to live their lives post-2022 because the world is not ending in 2022.
Thank you, Nurdin. Do you think Deputy President William Ruto is being unfairly treated and targeted by the very government he deputizes? Do you think Deputy President William Ruto is being unfairly treated and targeted by the very government he deputizes? Share your views through our SMS line 111 or a Switch TV Kenya and at link on Ombogo. We now take a short commercial break. The conversation continues shortly. Welcome back. You're watching Tipping Point right here on Switch TV. On our question of the day, we asked you earlier, do you think the Deputy President is being unfairly treated and targeted by the very government that he deputizes? Do you think the Deputy President is being unfairly treated and targeted by the very government he deputizes? Send in your feedback and comments through our SMS line 111 at Switch TV Kenya and at Lincoln Wombogo. Now, where were we? Sylvia Nordin.
Yeah.
All the allies of President Kenyatta, or a section of them, and Raila Odinga. Now remember, there's Raila Odinga, there's Uhuru Kenyatta, there's One Kenya Alliance. They've come together. They're pushing for maybe an impeachment motion on the floor of the House to impeach the Deputy President, now that it's clear that the Deputy President cannot be fired. Do you think the Deputy President has the numbers to counter this? Sylvia?
I think I would reflect this back on when we had the case of the Nairobi County, when the former governor, Sonko, they said, oh, well, he cannot be impeached because he doesn't have the numbers. And of course, he took all his guys down to the coast and people ended up voting on the mobile phone. Yes. So numbers are physical bodies, but it's not the actual tap on the vote. So they could claim they have the numbers, because what they need is the 2/3, if I'm not wrong. Yeah. So to gain that 2/3, if all these alliances, like you said, the alliances together with the president himself come together, yes, he can be impeached, but on what grounds?
Noted. Sylvia says numbers are just bit bodies. Look at what happened to Mike Sonko. What's your take on that?
You see, the biggest beneficiaries of that impeachment will be the MPs and senators, because they'll make a killing.
A killing in terms of what?
They'll make money. That is what is going to happen at the end of the day. The money will exchange hands for the impeachment to go through. You see, numbers are controlled with money at the end of the day. It's not, you just can't rally them and tell them with a word of mouth, hey, mkunywe chai na kesho you vote for me. No. Whoever coughs the most wins that day. That is how the sad reality. And then the sad reality is that, you see, our political parties are not owned. They are owned by individuals. They're not institutions. So there's a party position, there's a party line, all right? So most who come from, who have party leaders will be told this is how we are voting, and you'll vote that way. If you don't, remember, most of these guys, tomorrow morning, KRA will be at your doorstep. DPP will have a case against you that apparently some CDF money went somewhere. So they all have skeletons. And so some of them would try to shield themselves, because most of them are servicing loans. You realize, because these are the same people who are bribed 10,000 shillings in a toilet to pass a document, a report, 10,000 shillings. So imagine how easy it will be to bribe them to let's say, to impeach him. But is it the time for that? If you ask me, no, it's not. We have more pressing issues at the end of the day. This government just needs to finish. It goes home. We have a new government, courtesy of the democratic process, that in 2022 we elect a new president, a new deputy, and we hope that whoever comes next doesn't have these side shows that we are seeing. Kindly focus on your manifesto that you promised Kenyans to do. Nobody wants to see fights, realize, or nobody wants to see who has more muscles, you know. So at the end of the day, what needs to happen is that we need to rethink. The state of the nation is sad, because if I'm an investor, for example, I'm coming to Kenya for the first time. Then the first news I see today is that the Deputy President's security has been withdrawn, exchanged with the AP. Then you ask yourself, which place is this? And then the next morning you see the President and the Deputy are fighting. Would you invest your money in that country? You wouldn't. And that is why there is the saying in Kiswahili, fahala wile wakipigana nyasi ni unaumia. Kenyans are suffering now down here. That shows you how the political class is out of touch with reality. People would rather have money in their pocket, the children in school, something to eat, and the economy growing, than seeing fights between two grown men.
Now, Sylvia Nordin, allow us to read some of the feedback from Kenyans. And we asked a question of the day. Do you think the Deputy President is being unfairly targeted and treated by the very government he deputizes? Keep on tweeting, keep on sending your feedback through our SMS line, 111 and Switch TV Kenyan at Lincoln Wambogo. Now, on our tables, there's someone saying, on our tables after elections, let beneficiaries of politics eat their mouths. I don't know what that means, though. Then someone is saying, tell that man that there is no vote of sympathy. Now, this is to you, Nordin. Tell Nordin that there is no vote of sympathy to someone like Deputy President William Ruto. And saying that no one can solve the economic crisis that is in Kenya. So don't tell us that.
He's a stranger in Jerusalem.
Wycliffe Juma from Matunda says, as hustlers, we are only waiting to hear a word from our only son, William Ruto. No retreat, no surrender. Kahumburu wa Icharama, tuned in from Ichamara, Mukurwaine, says, Ruto and the president should sit down and bury their hatchets rather. In fact, anything negative from the two is just terrible.
Yes.
At this point.
Exactly.
But we've seen a cluster of frustrations the Deputy President, and it's clear the President is also pushing him to resign. A few days ago, he was in Kwale for a burial ceremony, and police was sent to disrupt the ceremony because maybe the Deputy President was speaking. Today, his security detail has been replaced. To what extent will this go, Sylvia?
It can go as far as the game plan is strategically planned behind the scenes. We don't know.
What game plan?
The game plan to make sure that, yes, please give up and hand in the towel. Yeah.
Are you saying they'll go to whatever extent now?
No, I'm not saying they will go to whatever extent, but all the things that are happening, it's all towards the show of, you know, don't go out there and use, you know, and there's actually a clip about it. If I go back to last week, where the Deputy President came up and gave a press release. And in his speech, he was very clear. He said that, you know, he's continuing with the Agenda 4.
Yes.
And so when you are you come out and say openly that I'm continuing with the Agenda 4, and you are partially in the government, you've been throwing stones at the same government for the past few months or so, where do you stand? So in a way, what we are having here is a Deputy President that, you know, is very ready to take office, and nothing else is going to stop him from taking office. And people will ask themselves, why does he want it so badly? Why can't he give Kenya a chance? Why can't he give the entire presidential team that is coming, and there's still more coming, a chance so that they can all be on a playing field to campaign? Right now, he's using the time of running the government to campaign for himself. And he has been doing this since this second term started. So in a way, it's not a positive feature for the government, and it's not a positive feature for the Deputy President himself. So he should have stepped back and said, whether they want me or not, I will continue to fight for this Agenda 4. I will find my own way to get this youth the jobs that we promised. I will find my own way to make sure that Wanjiku is not suffering. And just so that you know, we keep saying here Wanjiku, Wanjiku. Wanjiku is no longer in her category alone. Wanjiku is probably sometimes better off than the middle-class lady that was working in, let's say, Radisson Hotel and got fired because the hotel closed down. You know, where is she in this discussion? So right now, what the Deputy President should be saying, you know, what are we doing for the government? What are we doing for these people? Where are the vaccines that we need to give these people so that we can reopen the country fully? We've been in quarantine. I mean, we've been had a curfew for the past almost 2 years now. We are curfew. Some of us have forgotten what it feels like to be out past 10 p.m. And the industry that operates at night, which is the hotel industry and the bar industry, they've all been gravely affected. So he should not, like the president said, don't throw the stone at the glass house which you live in. And that is very clear. And then on the other hand, he should also say, okay, my boss is not giving me any duties to perform, but I will be humble and I will listen and I will wait for my turn, most importantly. And let's see this play out as mature people, as mature leaders that want to lead this country to the future. Because you're not just leading children or the youth or the hustlers that you imagine. There's Kenyans that you are leading who are also just as intellectual. And they're sitting in their houses, watch this game on the TVs.
Sylvia,
Yes.
you mentioned earlier that the deputy president maybe should now just let go and allow other people to take over because he has been deputy president. But the other people who also won that seat have been prime ministers, have been vice presidents too. So what's wrong with William Ruto?
Yeah, that's a good point you mentioned that they've been vice presidents.
Yes.
That is a very high office, the second highest office of the land.
They should also step back. 'Cause
Well,
now
they
it's
they
like
don't.
all
They,
of
they
them are on a level playing field.
They stepped back, and now they're on the level playing field. They're also fighting for it. But he's just new in the vice presidency. You know, you could even take 5 years out and go and replan and come back after 5 years. But nonetheless, he's in the field already. But he doesn't have to force it down people's throats. Let him give us the development plan for the past 5 years until August 2022, and then tell us what he plans to do after 2022. But you cannot tell us what you are going to do in 2022 when you have not shown us the performance of the past 4.5 years.
No, do you agree with Sylvia that the deputy president is pushing his presidential bid too far into people's throats?
Yeah, I believe, I think he took the saying, the early bird catches the worm, seriously. For him, he believes that as the others are busy negotiating or trying to form an alliance, let him go out there, and by the time they catch up with him, he's far ahead. Now, the sad reality is that he said that he's not going to surrender. No retreat, no surrender. That reminds me of a reggae song, by the way. It's a reggae season, eh?
Yes.
Clearly. So he says no retreat, no surrender. And for him, he's going to continue. Clearly, you can't stop him. And he's going to use the excuse that he doesn't have work. Apparently, most of his duties were given to Matiang'i. So how do you blame the guy once he tells you that? There's an executive order to that effect. Now, the sad reality is that what he's going through is not new in Kenya. We even spoke this off air. You realize even Kibaki went through this when he was trying to wrestle the presidency from Moi. It's something that is there. So I believe when Moi said Kanu will be there for 100 years, even though he didn't mean physical people in presidency, I think even the traits of Kanu. Because the sad reality is that this issue of using police, you know, he's at a unique point. He's a deputy president of Kenya, but he's treated as an opposition leader. You see, everything that comes being an opposition leader, the tear gas. He saw that the other day in Kwale.
Yes.
The police being sent to disrupt your meetings. It's a slow process. It's getting there. Where you are an insider, but at the same time an outsider. That's where he is at, which is sad. That's why we keep saying, for example, we've been saying the entire show, they need to put the act together. That is the president and the deputy. Now you see, you can't just blame the deputy and leave the president out of it. Because at the end of the day, the buck stops with the president.
Yes.
If anything needs to be resolved, the president needs to call the deputy, they have a discussion. Because when you blame him and you also don't want to listen to what he has to say, then you will always be on different pages. And the sad reality is that nothing will be done.
I mean, no, what's the worst that could happen?
The worst?
Yeah.
Nothing.
11 months to the general elections.
11 months?
Yes.
Nothing can happen. Nothing that we haven't seen. Because I believe between now and the elections, he's going to experience some of the things Raila has experienced as an opposition leader. That's what is going to happen. Because you're going to have a state after you. So that when the state is after you, it's going to use everything. You realize? Everything. Most of the time, they lose police. They use the police to disrupt your meetings. You'll have issues here and there. Maybe, if he resigns, tomorrow the ESCC, the DPP, there will be some KRA, some things will come. The normal things, you know. That is why he's smart enough to know it's not your time. And the sad reality is that if they play politics like that, they're giving him an upper hand. Someone just said there's no sympathy votes. That's what I'm saying. Yeah. He's a stranger in Jerusalem. He's new into politics, and the politician knows how to swing. You know, negative or positive publicity in politics is still publicity. They know how to swing something to their side. So at the end of the day, they need to be careful. If you don't want him to win, plan yourselves better. If you don't want him to, you don't have to go and disrupt his meeting. Let him have his meeting at the end of the day. Have yours elsewhere. That's what. That is what, you know. The president talked about forward-thinking democracy. That is democracy. Let everybody have their say. You know, at the end of the day, the people will decide, and the way will be seen. But if it is seen that everybody else is given a chance to campaign except him, then you ruin everything.
Now, no, talking of the people, Sylvia, this is what the people are saying. The deputy president is gaining fame by the day through his humiliation. Musa Ngetich from Baringo County. Someone else is saying, Mwangi from Utawala, we need to learn to follow and respect the constitution, the court orders, and generally follow the law, period. Very, very unfair. I believe there is an assassination attempt. Oh my goodness.
I don't go there.
I think that's going too far. I don't think it can get there.
Too far. You
It's
can't
too
do
far.
that.
No, you
Hey,
can't do
tipping
that.
point, Brayo Pogba, from where, according to me, what was done today to the deputy president is very unfair. He was treated very badly. This is just bad politics. Is this bad politics?
Yes. Well, because you see, our politics as a country, we've moved forward as a nation. However, when it comes to our politics and how we handle our politics, it's filled with self-interest, greed, and selfishness, if I say so, and no ideologies. Everybody just wants to wake up, get into a leadership seat, and go and grab what is theirs, because we have turned it into a milling machine. But when we go right back into the politics that we should have in this country is when somebody actually decides that I feel like I have a calling to go and serve my people. And when you get to office, you serve your people. You won't have time for all this palaver. You will have time to serve your people. And I have actually to commend His Excellency the President. He, you know, despite all these facts, he's pushing on with the agenda. He's pushing on with the things that need to be done. Throughout COVID, we've had so many hospitals being constructed, roads are being carpeted. He saw the mess in Nairobi. He stepped in to recapture Nairobi because Nairobi is the icon of Kenya. So our politics is still young, but we are not helping as individuals because we are all a highly educated nation. But when it comes to politics, we choose to go the rough path. And I've never understood why highly educated people will get into office and turn around on the backs of their own people that have voted for them and betray them. Betraying them meaning that you spend your time on fiascos as opposed to delivering what you went to serve your people. I mean, what you went to deliver. If you see the delivery records of most of the members of parliament is dismal.
You think so?
Yes,
No, do.
it is dismal.
What precedence does this frosty relationship between the deputy president and the president, what precedence does it set for future deputy presidents?
It's not new. You see, the only difference is that, one, the guy sitting there is William Ruto, and the post he occupies is deputy president.
Yes.
It used to be vice president. So the vice presidents who came before him, you could look at Saitoti, how he was treated.
Well
look
appointed.
at Kibaki. No, just look at how they were treated at some point. Saitoti, Kibaki. Back then,
Mudavadi served for a very short time.
which was which is a record. But at the end of the day, it's nothing new. It's the same office. It has a different title, but it's the same things keep happening to those who occupy that. Even the former president, Moi, went through humiliation and frustration. So I think if it's a president who was set earlier, now we need to move away from that, where it's not just the deputy president, even the deputy governors. Because some of them are in office, it's sad. They have nothing to do. You're just a deputy governor with no portfolio. You have a portfolio, but you have nothing to do. You're just to be seen, not to be heard. If you remember back then when Watit was governor, he told Nyoro, my friend, when you're looking for a seat, ungeuliza unatafuta kazi gani. Kama hiyo haina kazi, nyamaza ukae hapa nyuma. It is sad because at the end of the day, we need these offices, they need some respect, level of respect. Because I believe the framers of the Constitution had a reason as to why we have deputy president and deputy governors. Because one, the easiest one everybody knows is in case of a vacuum. So if you can fill a vacuum, then you must have something to do. There is substance. But most of them are more like PAs. You have to be assigned something to do. You realize. So at the end of the day, I think going forward, we need a paradigm shift, a radical surgery of a political scene, in that anyone who occupies those offices, they get the respect they deserve, and they have duties to do. But if they have no duties, then why do we even have such seats in the first place?
So are you saying that if we don't have a paradigm shift, Kenyans are going to be subjected
It's going to happen again.
To these dramas?
It will happen again. There'll be a new William Ruto will go through the same thing or worse.
And what paradigm shifts are we looking at?
That brings me to how we started. For anyone that is going to vie as a president and a deputy, what has brought the both of you together? Why that ticket? For example, why you and I? What is the common agenda? If it is to capture power, it is dead on arrival. If it is to serve the citizens, then that's what we need. You see, in Kenya, the sad reality, we have politicians and not leaders. A politician is self-centered. A leader thinks about the people. So what we want in Kenya, for example, is we want people who are visionary, who are selfless and patriotic. They put the country before themselves. So if you come with that mindset, and I speak from the school of thought of Thomas Sankara, who happens to be my teacher. So if you come with that mindset, for example, that you want to serve the people, then believe you me, we won't have these wrangles. Because if your agenda is to put money in the pocket of the people, if your agenda is to improve the livelihoods of the people, why would you fight?
Now, Sylvia Norden, and of course Kenyans, Norden is talking of a paradigm shift, and Raila Odinga and President Uhuru Kenyatta came together and they thought that BBI will be the paradigm shift for Kenya. And the BBI was shot down at the High Court level. The appeal to the Court of Appeal was shot down again, termed unconstitutional. Now, the Attorney General wants to appeal now that verdict. The Supreme Court, the BBI Secretariat have declared they will back him up. How far will this go, Sylvia?
Well, as far as I would like to imagine is that, I wish it was buried and in the past, just as it's been buried by the High Court.
Yes.
However, taking it to the Supreme Court is actually going a step too far. You can not have the first court decline and the second court decline, and then you still spend the public funds to go into the Supreme Court. What are you chasing for? Because we know that in the BBI, there is other provisions that can actually be handled in Parliament, in the House of Parliament, like in the case of the increment of the 35%. That can be handled in the House of Parliament through voting. So why can't they pick out the points which was actually suggested, and I think it was Senator Malala suggested that this can be handled in the Parliament. So why don't we pick out those points? But trying to push it too far when actually you know that the country is reeling under COVID effects. We have barely vaccinated up to 2 million people.
Do they really care, though?
That is what we just said. Is that service or is it selfishness? Are you in power or are you leading?
Let's take a look at what the BBI Secretariat had to say about that.
On the way to the Supreme Court, and we are going to support the Attorney General in that endeavor.
There is the real possibility of a national crisis if some of the BBI provisions don't become law. For instance, BBI is intent on finally settling the gender question in Parliament.
National crisis, Newton.
Let me tell you something. This thing is dead on arrival. And you know why I say that? Because they'll find the same questions up there. Public participation, not properly done. Civic education, the same thing. And then, the reason why I'm telling you it's dead on arrival, who's appealing? The AG. And they say it's a popular initiative. What is a popular initiative?
By the people.
Exactly. You are told the president cannot be a Wanjiku. You realize? People. So, if the AG is already the one appealing, it's dead. You see, I keep asking myself, who advises the president? But clearly the AG doesn't know his job. Because at the end of the day, whatever you're doing, it's an exercise in futility. And why do you have to force it down our throats? Because at the end of the day, like she said, there are things that don't need a referendum. Why can't Parliament do its job? Like the money to the counties, like things to do with the youth. You don't need a referendum unless there's something you're not telling us. Why do you need to force it down our throats? Because now they're wasting time. The taxpayers' money, that money would have bought maybe some new vaccines. At the end of the day. But we are so focused on BBI, that shows you how much the political class is out of touch with reality.
Exactly.
In an alien economy, You are more focused on a document that has ended up dividing the people more than anything else. You realize? And a leader who wants to capture power by dividing people will attain the power but will never be able to lead the same people. Because if people are divided, if they are divided, why do you have to
We
force
have
them
less
to
than a minute, Nurdin. Now, there's a debate among us Kenyans arguing that the billions spent on the BBI process should be refunded. 30 seconds, Sylvia. What's your take?
Well, I wouldn't say refunded, but I would say be shifted to buy vaccines and mass vaccinate the entire population so we can move out of COVID and move on with our lives and rebuild our economy. That's what I would say.
Nurdin, less than 30 seconds. Final take.
All the money that has been stolen under this administration,
Yes.
the Kenyans need it back. And we need also to have a look at all the contracts they have signed. From
two-
the SGR,
from the 2
from the
billion a day?
SGR to everything that they have been engaged in, so that we can know where we stand and where that money went to. Because that money, you and I pay it. So at the end of the day, even the expressway, we need to see documentation on the expressway because there will be towing fees. So at the end of the day, we need to have a holistic approach on how this government was run from 2013 to the day it ends.
Thank you, Nurdin. Thank you, Sylvia, for...
As I finish, I hope my person and Greta has been lifted. It has been 2 months. To the team, Cliff and the team, thank you for having me after 2 months.
But you're here.
You know, I'd even forgotten my way here. It's been that long. But
You're here. And it's always a pleasure having you, Sylvia, and of course, Nurdin.
Thank you for having
Thank
me.
you for gracing our studios. Now, all the views in this show do not portray the views of Switch TV whatsoever, but our individual views. The conversation on Tipping Point continues next week. Many thanks for watching. I am Lincoln Ombogo. Our sign language interpreters tonight were Tracy Dorcas and Michael Mythia, and of course to my producers Daniel Karaoke and Clifford Doby. Good job. Good evening.